Joey, and I saw this Air Force Ventures report, and I've been wanting to do a review of it for a while to just highlight how amazing the work that the Ventures team is doing, has what impact it's created. I want to highlight one thing that Jason said here, that is that private capital investment in new and innovative technologies is about 80% of our nation's R&D expenditures. So now a majority of the research and development is not happening inside of government. It's happening in commercial industry. And we have to create a way that we create a dual use market where companies are successful in the commercial world and in the DoD. I think the work that the Ventures team at AFVentures has done is a phenomenal way to get to that. Over those 3 years, they awarded over 2,299 awards, $710 million in funding to over 1,400 companies. And the really cool thing is it was 72 days average to contract. That means those companies submitted a proposal, it was reviewed, they got a response, and they were on contract to do the work in that time. So the next thing I wanted to highlight here is you'll see that a lot of these companies have been in business for an average of 8.9 years. So you're looking at some older companies coming through the space, but some newer ones as well. And you have a large breakdown of the companies that were incorporated 2017, 2019. A large group of them are in place. On this side, I want to highlight that the impact of the SBIR CTR funding is a 5.8 to 1 return on investment. By building a portfolio of companies that are going to go be successful commercially and inside the DoD, we're able to help companies transition and build a process for them to get engaged. And there was about 4,850 proposals received in that time. It's amazing to see how many more people are getting involved. And through that process, out of those 2,299 contracts, 538 of them proceeded to sort of that phase 2, prototyping and engaging with the warfighter to seeing, hey, what can we do to go out and problem can we solve with you? Let's prototype it out, prove it out. And there's over 300 Air Force units that were a part of that process. And what's been amazing to see is that airmen are now getting to be a part of this process and say, hey, this is the problem we want to help solve, and then scale that into government. And so you'll see that as the Ventures team and AFVentures was launched here, you'll see the amount of companies that got involved pretty much skyrocketed, and it's going to continue to be at this high pace to bring those companies in. And what I want to highlight on this slide was where the investment is going. You'll see a ton of effort is going into artificial intelligence, machine learning, IT, and you actually look at this, about 50% of these are like software related, but the other 50% are like training, hardware, biotech, energy. And what's super cool about this is that the military in general needs so much technology across the board that if you have something in any one of these fields, you can bring that to the table and say, hey, we want to make things better. This is also part of actually why I went to Platform One, is 50% of these companies with AFVentures, we had solved the problem of how do we get companies on contract quickly, get them talking to their end customer, and get them funding, but how do we get them that ATO? And that's the problem I'm solving now and excited to build out and create, and the commercialization plan is going along well. So on the next slide here, what I wanted to highlight is that you'll see a lot of projects broken out by the major commands, the business areas inside the military. And what you'll see here is that you have Air Force Materiel Command had 134 phase 2 projects. AFSOC, which is one of the first command I grew up in, had 74. And what you're seeing is that now these commands are figuring out how to test these ideas and how to bring them into their process. And because of that, and this decentralized model, you'll see one thing that I want to highlight is they've now contributed $1.4 billion in follow-on non-SBIR STTR DoD contracts, so that these initial projects, there are 538 of them that are prototyping 300 different units across the Air Force and the Space Force, and has brought different funding in to help these companies transition or double down on their prototyping efforts and truly figure out how does that scale. And that is the power of a decentralized approach. And what's so amazing to me about that is now you can bring in new technology, incorporate it in. We're going to win the next fight, not by who has the coolest technology, but who can bring that in and integrate it into their day-to-day operations as quickly as possible. And we're building that culture with our airmen to say, yes, this can be done. Yes, we need to change our funding pathways, and we will help these things scale. It's pretty awesome to see those transition things happen. On the space mission side, what's really cool to see in Colorado, this is home, you'll see that Colorado actually got 43 awards for the space mission, about almost $10 million. And you'll see California is in there as well with a lot of the startups. But there's a ton of support around the United States for the space mission. I think you're only going to see this grow, and I'm excited to see how the Space Works mission keeps growing and shifting this, and a better tie-in from the companies to the customers and building that pace together. And on this slide, I wanted to just give a shout out to the team members for the COVID task force response. We stood that up last March, and it was humbling and amazing to work with so many people that cared about, hey, how do we get the right solutions and PPE to our country, to the people that need it? And it was phenomenal to work with these people that they work nights and weekends. They work so hard. I just want to thank them for all of that. Work resulted in 3,740 submissions. And out of that, there were $640 million in contract awards to deliver over 2 billion articles of personal protective equipment. So one of the last things I wanted to highlight is in this appendix, you're seeing that these awards are broken down by many different states. As an ecosystem builder, one thing I'm passionate about is sort of how do we help middle America and all the entrepreneurs that are in these states. There's an opportunity to get some of the SBIR awards. A lot of the funding has gone to California, Colorado, Texas. But what are the entrepreneurs in these states doing? How do we get them involved more in this process and help connect them to the customers? There's bases in these states, Air Force bases, military bases. How do we make sure they're connected to the opportunity to solve those problems? What are the dual use technologies that we can find and bridge that gap? I also see the same thing with the STTR work. You're seeing a lot of the research institutions. Actually, Texas came out on top for this one. You'll see, there's a ton of awesome research being done at the universities and other organizations in these states. How do we pull them and get them involved in the process? So it's pretty amazing to see the work that the Ventures team has done. And I'm really excited to see where the next few years go and how we can continue bringing in more and more partners in from the non-traditional places and bringing entrepreneurs in to solve national security problems. At the end of the day, this is the Air Force that we build and the DoD space that we build. And it will require a partnership from both the public side and the private side to make that happen. And this dual use venture process is phenomenal and it's generating results for the Air Force. And I hope that we continue seeing adoption for it across all of the DoD. So thanks for listening to this review of the Ventures report and the work that was done over those 3 years. Looking forward to folks jumping in for the 21.2 release. The link to that is below. This report is also linked on the Ventures website. And so if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Take care.